Okay, so here we are starting from the backyard. Again, it's May 2nd, 2021. We're in Macungie, Pennsylvania, Zone 6B, and starting out in the what usually was the forgotten back lot of the yard, and I've been trying to bring some order to it this year. So we've got random daffodils growing all over the property, planted by the neighbor, someone that resided over there many years ago, and they just pop up everywhere, and I usually just let them go because I don't mind them, but if they get in my way, I don't have any bad feelings about getting rid of them. Back here, we used to have a barn, and the person that owns this part of the property took it down and built a parking lot. So the environment has changed a lot back here because it's open where it didn't used to be. I used to have dead rotting wood and trees along here, and now it's kind of just this mess that I've been trying to bring into order. I've put sunflowers down here. This really isn't a permanent bed situation. I'm just kind of getting the first layer in here to figure out what I might want to use this space for. I'll be throwing some composted items in here. Over here is my wood pile, scrap pile, burn pile, etc. But in the meantime, I did throw in some sunflowers down here, and we can see that they are indeed planted really closely together, of course, because I always overdo it, but they are coming up nicely. I only did about half of this bed with sunflowers. The rest of this has got some bits of concrete showing through. It needs to be raised up. I need to properly border this, but it's a work in progress. Phase 1. So over here, come around this way, is right at the edge of where my property starts, or ends rather, and my sister's begins. So she's got all these lovely ground cover taking over, which we like, so we just let it kind of go wild. It's better than the grass. It chokes out whatever weeds. This here is my peony that comes back faithfully every year without me doing anything to it. We've got big blooms coming. We're still a ways away. They're going to get a lot bigger before they finally pop open. Here I've got a volunteer Rosa Sharon that I decided to let go because I thought maybe I could shape it as it grows, since it's such a small shoot that came up. It started growing last year. And this behemoth, I forget what it's called, but that just about quadruples its size each year. And then I cut that stuff off. But there'll be big, white, beautiful flowers, flower clusters, if I remember correctly, that grow off of that. This area was a flower bed, but with the flood that we had, most of it all washed away, so I'm kind of just letting it go back to earth, back to nature for now. We'll see what I decide to do with it. Got enough other projects going on. So over here is a bed that I put in today, lovingly referred to as my soul patch. It's my okra and watermelon, my soul food plants, just a few of them. Of course, there's more elsewhere. And I got some marigolds in there too. So these I had started from seed in my greenhouse a few weeks ago. And it was just gorgeous out today, so I figured I'd get these out. Got watermelon going around the outside, okra's in the middle. And then because we've got so many bunnies, I did put the chicken wire around there. Here's just some hostas grown in these little tires, just to fill in underneath. My lovely little apple tree here. It does give us apples each year. I just recently stopped or grew out of an allergy to apples, so this year I'll be able to enjoy them finally. all along here are Rose of Sharon, which are just starting to bud back after a pretty severe trimming last year. You can kind of see through the property line. The taller Rose of Sharons right over there are my neighbors, and they didn't trim them back. I, on the other hand, chose to trim these back this year just to get them under control, because they can get out of hand. But they will be full of greenery for quite a while, and then they'll have big, beautiful, hot pink flowers on them that the bees and the butterflies just love. Down here, I've got some natives that I bought from a local farmer where I source my mushroom soil from as well. So I've got some iris there. Completely forget what that's called, but it puts nice little yellow flowers. There's some just starting to bloom. There's a sedum ground cover, which will take over. It can take over as much space as it wants. As far as I'm concerned, here's some daylilies, lamb's ear. Oh, this is a type of dead nettle. I think it's a striped dead nettle or variegated dead nettle, something like that. Or lamb's ear. There's another sedum. It's the autumn joy that'll get big shoots. These big pink rust-colored blooms on them that stay up all winter, and they look really cool in the garden. I have a bunch of these in different places. There's another Rose of Sharon. And I'm going to swing over here so we can just see the current state of the fire pit area. We took these tires and some rope and a drill and some paint, a couple bolts, and built our little powwow area here. A little fire pit. We've got another one over there we're still figuring out where to put. Over here, it's a Japanese cherry tree that's nicely in bloom. Let me come around. I planted this guy about 2, maybe 3 years ago, I think. And it was just a teeny tiny little guy. I'm trying to keep it small. This is another type of cherry tree, but not the same. And it's already bloomed for its season. So it's just going to be green up until late fall, when it will get a nice trim, because it's kind of got a funky shape going right now. This is the greenhouse garden bed. It's got lavender, lupine, couple, I forget, this guy here in the front will put off red flowers, I believe, and this has got some nice little blues. They all kind of, the current blooms are spent, but there's new ones coming on, but they're a mix of like a bright purple and a blue. That there is a milkweed. No, I'm sorry, a bee balm plant. Doesn't seem to be doing so hot since its last transplant, but it was kind of struggling to begin with. I might have to move them somewhere. That is a milkweed plant there in the back, up against the wall. This is a coleus, I believe these are called. These are all perennials, mostly natives. Here I've got these big yuccas that have been growing for a number of years. Something got to them earlier and ate the middle out, but the outside's filling in nicely. Some yucca, some keep creeping Jenny. There's some lemon balm coming in down here. think this is a hosta coming back that I thought washed away. This is one that did wash away that I found in the middle of the yard. This sage plant actually held out through the winter, and I didn't have the heart to cut these big straggly stalks off, and now I see they're blooming, so I'm glad I didn't, because that looks like it's about to bloom. Let's see here. Here's another sedum, one of the autumn joys. This is one of my larger ones. The yucca. These big established plants here, you couldn't kill them if you tried. Here's kind of an area that's in progress. I've got a clematis and what volunteered, but I believe it's called something honey. It's a climbing vine. I'll look it up and see what it is later. I forget what it's called. This area needs some cleaning and adjusting. My horseradish refuses to die. I've been trying to kill that since I moved here. I think I'm going to take a flamethrower to it soon. Maybe salt the earth. This is my greenhouse here. I had to get a replacement door. Hasn't gotten attached yet because a windstorm came through and the old one kind of flew right off its hinges and busted. So I got a new one. Just got to get it up on there. In the meantime, we'll come see what's growing in the greenhouse. It's kind of a mess because I was working in here today, sorting things out. I haven't gotten things back in order yet, but over here we've got some Gerber daisies there, just starting to sprout. Here, I've got goji berry plants starting here. This is a mystery, which my mom found while we were out in the garden one day, so I planted it to see what would come of it. So here's just a handful of sunflowers I threw in earlier when I was planting things because they sprout easily, and I like to have a little bit of green for encouragement in those early months when it seems like spring and planting season is so far away. Here I've got some beefsteaks, tomatoes. These guys I started here, let's see, 321. These are my indeterminates. These here are determinates, they're Romas. And then I've got a sandwich hybrid that's a indeterminate as well. So I've been trying to stick with indeterminate plants or tomato plants as much as possible because I'm really interested in seeing how big and how tall I can get them to grow using the different pruning techniques and so forth. So I have a lot started so that I have a feeling I'll probably end up losing some, but I like to try different things and see what works. So I got a bunch of these guys here. They were in these smaller peat pots before, and it just gets too hot in here and they were drying out, and I think that's why their growth was stunted, and just in the last 2 days they already look way better, so that's promising. Over here's some cherry tomatoes that's got like one sad little sprout that's half dead. So I don't think much will come of these guys. Again, it's these peat pots. I don't recommend them in a greenhouse such as I have, where you can't control the temperature. Maybe next year I'll invest in some temperature control, but right now I do not have electricity to this area unless it's by means of an extension cord. I've got some lavender very slowly showing its head. I have one solitary chive. I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna just have to start all over. Those did not take. Got some sage going here in the back, some sedums that I want to put in the garden or in the flower beds. Gotta be honest, I don't know what's going on with the eggplant here. I haven't ever done eggplant from seed. And this tray alone, I don't know if it's just each stage of growth or if every seed in the world got mixed in or if there was something in the soil, but not one thing looks like the same plant to me. So I'm going to kind of let these get bigger and see what happens. It's one thing that does appear to look like an eggplant leaf to me. When I used Picture This, it told me it was something completely unrelated. I forget what, but it was not eggplant. There's some sweet peppers. They're taking their good old time to sprout, but I'm sure they'll be catching up. Here's some hot peppers. That's just some little ground cover, Snow on the Mountain, I think it's called, that I had left from a big flat that I planted earlier today. Coming over to the other side here, just an update on my attempt at growing some moss on the floor of my greenhouse, because the floor is actually concrete. I think there was an old shed on here at one point, and so I use this as a flat base, but I'm realizing I'm losing moisture, so I'd like to reintroduce moss. So I tried it straight on the ground, and then I also, several weeks later, put it in this tray, and it's doing much better in the tray. So lesson learned. Started in the tray and then transplant it. Up here we've got some more sedum I just threw down. I've got a lot of seeds this year, and I'm just trying to see what works and what doesn't. I've got, let's see, I don't even know what I'm growing right here. Coneflower. I got coneflower here that's just barely beginning to sprout. Then black-eyed Susans. Delphiniums aren't doing anything. Well, maybe a little bit right there, just starting. Got some rock cress. Over here is my Brussels sprouts that I've never grown before in any fashion, so we'll see how this goes. I'm pretty excited about those. Here's a mixture of things. I've got beefsteak tomatoes just starting to sprout. There's some cucumbers. There's some butternut squash, zucchinis, yellow summer squash. Got cauliflowers just peeking their heads up now. Here's my collards. I'm gonna have to separate those soon. And the last little bit of okra that I did not plant because it was just barely sprouted. Up here's green beans that I would like to keep them growing in this pot and hanging in this greenhouse and see how they do. Same goes for this sweet pepper that I've got. That's going to stay in here. And then up here I've just got a couple of house plants that I'm trying to rescue. And this was some, I think these were irises that were in a pot, and they must have got uprooted and they were just kind of laying in the yard. So I grabbed them and figured we'll see what happens. Over here, give you a shot of the greenhouse here. There's the backyard that we went through. Over here, this is all just kind of wildflowers and grasses and random things that I've kind of just letting this go wild. I want it to be kind of like a meadow. So there's various things, and then I'm planting where there's holes. So those are some delphiniums. Anywhere you see straw, there's going to be seeds that I had planted. But at the moment, I can't recall what any of them are, so we'll see what happens in the next video. See what comes up. That's a banana tree. I'm going to see how he does. Some low-lying flowers I planted under there. Some random things here. This is a lavender. There's a few little lavender. I'm sorry, not lavender. Lilac bushes, little shoots coming from my larger lavender, which was a volunteer from my neighbor's beautiful, monstrous lavender. So, lavender, I keep saying that. Lilac bush. Here, I've got some little sedums and succulents and such growing in here. Some random fern that appeared, I think I planted a few years ago, and then it died off. somehow came back. In the tires, I've got seeds for butternut squash and summer squash there, with the plan that the vines will grow up and through. I did a smaller version of this last year and it worked pretty well. So I went about 4 times the size this time around. And on this side, I've got tomatoes. Wasn't sure how my seeds were going to do, so I went and I got some starter plants. So again, the indeterminate ones I've got up against the tall trellis that I made here with the fencing, and then in the smaller ones I've got the determinate variety, and all around I've got my broccoli in this one here. Over here, those little sprouts in the back, I believe are peas. And then over here I've got string beans and garden beans. One's a stringless variety, one's a stringed variety. So they'll grow up my little poles here, and I'll be able to pick those nicely. Back there's my big monstrous apple tree that actually just got its first good trim in a couple of years, about a month ago. So it's doing much better than it's been. It was looking half dead before. There's some more hostas. Over here, all I've got is some peppers in the ground at this point. Oh, I did have carrots over on the far left side of this middle bed here as well, but can't see anything yet. It's all just seed. There's some sweet peppers. And then this is, I believe, a cayenne pepper. It's already got some peppers on there. I'm going to wait till those turn red. There's some more bell peppers there. We like a lot of bell peppers. Over here, this monstrosity is, I believe, a privet that got out of control and got hacked down and is rejuvenating here. So I'm going to figure out some way to shape that nicely so it's not such an eyesore. This mound also contained another one of those privets, but also this, what I believe is wild clematis that's growing, this vine here. It does flower. It's pretty. It is invasive, but I think based on where I've got it narrowed down to, I can actually kind of embrace it and trellis it or something. This bed over here, I'm trying the hugelkultur method. So it's logs and then twigs and then smaller bits of debris, yard waste. And then I filled it with mushroom soil, and it's supposed to keep moisture in. As the wood decomposes, it heats it up. It's sort of like composting directly in your garden bed. So trying it out just in a small space, and I just got a couple rows of corn started in there just to see how it does. I may build it up over the years if this year works out well. Here, I'm gonna back up so we can see this, is a grapevine. It's a Concord grape that previously was completely covering this trellis that's up here, which is about, I don't know, 12, 15 feet high. It was way out of control. Spotted lanternflies were taking over, so I hacked it all the way back and hoped for the best. And lo and behold, I've got new growth. Something's been eating it right from here. I don't know what, but every day I come out and there's a bloom and then there isn't. But they seem to be leaving most of them alone. So hopefully this year, maybe next year, I will have edible Concord grapes that I can reach and that are healthy. This is a peony that had moved itself due to the flood that I dug from its spot and moved over here, and it's not doing well from the transplant. I don't expect it to bloom this year, but next year it should come back nicely. Again, under all of this, I've got seeds of various clovers, ground covers. I did a lot of the micro clover, which I think is just adorable and way better than grass. So back here, there's the peony. There's some columbine in there. It's kind of hard to see. That's a stump that needs some taken care of in one fashion or another. This fence just went up, so we're discovering lots of new things. Here's 2 lilacs that I transferred that came off of the mother plant, again, which is about halfway down the garden path there. Some more columbine. I think that's a clematis. This is coming back from last year. I knew what it was earlier today, but it's been a long day and I can't recall. This guy was half dead, but he just keeps hanging on, so I'm hoping in this new spot that might do better. So hopefully this path will be covered in green and color in a little while. Coming down here, I just like to let this area go wild. I think it's fun. There is some another peony popping up in there. I've thrown some lupine seeds in there. They'll take a good year or 2 to grow, but they're in there. A little tree stump that I love so much. And there's wild strawberries that grow in here. I've planted things here over years, but I found that there's some sedum. These little flowering cuties. Just like to let this go wild here. There's some more sedum in the back. I am going to plant something to cover this big white expansive wall. That's the neighbor's wall, so I got to be careful with what we put there, but that's that side. Over here, I forget what color these are. So they're pink, blue, or purple. I cannot recall. But these will climb all the way up this pole and bloom pretty much most of the summer. Same here. They're different colors, but again, it's been a year since I've seen them, so I don't recall. Here I had tomatoes growing last year, and I'm still undecided as to what I'm going to do, but that area needs some cleaning. Some strawberries look like they might have been coming back though, so I'm kind of letting it go until I'm ready. Over here we've got some thyme and dill. And I've just got one little basil plant that I started in there, but I also threw seed down quite a while ago, and they're just starting to sprout. I did basils and oreganos in this pot because this is right off my back door, and right through there is my kitchen, and I like having those handy. This is a sage that I separated from the other one in the garden, and it was doing great until yesterday's super high winds and today's 90-degree weather out of nowhere. So I don't know what's going to happen there. That's just room for growth. More stuff I'll put in later. This hosta has been here longer than me, and I think it's finally the year that I divide it because it's really only growing out of about a 1 square foot of space, but it's taken up all that room. So that's the backyard tour, and I'll take you through a little alley here. I do live on a main road in a little town, so it may be noisy. I'll just show you what I got going out here. Since I got basically concrete out front, I make do with what I can. The planters where I can, whatever materials I can find. some Irish moss, another sedum. These boxes, I tend to forget to water. So this year, I decided I would just go with things that don't need me to remember to water them. So we've got some hens and checks, little rosettes. We've got some prickly pear that already has started sprouting. All of these little guys were not here when I planted them, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Some nice sedums of different colors and varieties. Here, I don't know what's growing in there. Maybe just a random weed, but it's letting it go, see what it turns into. Same thing here. Here's the last box. I like these little rosettes. These guys are kind of cool. They're fuzzy. This little thing. So these will spread out, and they'll come back every year. And then I'm just gonna back up here and get a shot of my favorite plant. I guess this is where we'll end the tour with my wisteria. So this, I've been told that this appears to be the invasive wisteria variety, but I've been able to keep it under control following a regular pruning schedule about 2-3 times a year by keeping on, leaving enough old growth, because this one blooms from the old growth, the prior year's growth. Got this little volunteer down here. Actually, I'm not sure, I might have planted that. I threw some sunflower seeds back in down there. They're doing fine. This is a fern that grows back every year. I can't kill it, can't get rid of it, and it looks kind of cool, so I kind of just let it go. This is a bleeding heart that I moved from the other side of the house last year, and I thought I lost it, and then lo and behold, this year it just popped back up. So this here is a nice shot of the wisteria. It needs a bit of a trim, but I'm letting it go until it's all done blooming, because I don't want to mess with the blooms. And there's the front of the house. And sorry for the shakiness. Walking down the road here. And just over to this last little bit. This area needs some serious work. This is a bucket I filled 2 years ago with one teeny tiny little bit of each of these plants in here. So this will flower, get really nice, gets little flowers. I don't know if we can get that to focus. There we go. That's bee balm. The creeping Jenny comes back nicely every year. Here's another sedum. I'm going to need to split these all up. This is just way too much in here right now. Back here's African lilies that have been growing out from underneath this house for God knows how long. And I can't get to them because they're buried by this hydrangea, which I unfortunately trimmed far too late in the season. Should have done it in the winter, but I didn't. And I think it's pretty much just gonna look, I don't think it's gonna flower this year, basically, but it'll come back. And then this whole area's got to get cleaned up, because now we're right up against my neighbor's house. That's how these old towns are. And I kind of just want to hide this big old tank that they got going. So that's going to get cleaned. This will get separated. But for now, that's what we've got. So that is just about everything that I've got going on so far this year, this month. I'll try to come back next month, make another video, do another progress video, and see how everything turns out.